Do you feel that everyone, no matter what level they're at, faces some sort of demons?
I think it's constant. Like when I had the whole back to me shift, I remember realizing there is no arriving. Like I thought at first, like once we let go and we heal and we surrender and we free ourselves, we just become enlightened. Or, you know, I do believe we have to awaken, but I believe until, the way I say it is, and someone said it to me and I really liked it because I was talking about this and this girl said, so we don't go back to it till we die. And I was like, exactly, until we go back to where we were before we were born. As long as we're breathing, we have these battles, these demons, and it's something that's come up with me and my fiance talking about spiritual warfare. And it's definitely a real thing, I think, 100%. And I think as long as we're breathing, as long as we're pushing forward, as long as we're progressing, but we have this warfare constantly. And I think the world itself wants to distract us and wants us battling. So the hardest part is you getting the courage to do it, but also there's spiritual warfare and then there's a world warfare which wants you staying small. And that sounds cynical and everything, but I believe that, like, because the world wants you a consumer, right? Paying attention, which turns to dollars for them. So yeah, I mean, that's why when you said it, I was like, that's dark, but it's true.
The
like,
demons
of dreams, it's so dark, Frazer.
Yeah,
like
for me, it's like super dark.
We're like, we need to sit down and have a chat, you know? But it's true, yeah.
And that's that brings us on to the first demon. The first demon is like not having enough. Like it never seems to be enough. Like especially in like the line of work that I'm in the network marketing space, which you know super well, and obviously the spaces that you're in. Like people constantly pushing for like the next thing. I find that exhausting, and I think that a lot of people are like the demon is saying like, you've not done enough yet. You've achieved nothing yet. You're so small. Which in an entrepreneurial world, it's like always think big, always play hard, always push. Yeah. But it's exhausting. It's not relatable. It causes a lot of issues. Yes, growth comes from it. What's your perspective on the whole never enough demon?
As you were talking, I was like, we've had these discussions over the years. Like you go through this, and that's why. And I always say this, like the reason I know what I know inside out, and people say, how do you talk for hours with no slides or notes? Because I'm living it for my whole life. Because it's like, it's not what I do, it's who I am. It's like in my DNA. I'm struggling, but I've been obsessed with figuring it out. That's the only difference in me and other people is I've been obsessed with figuring it out. You've just been maybe dealing with it. And you've been obsessed with figuring it out because the amount of times we sat down and you've been smashing it for a long time now. Like, I don't know if anyone told you, but you're killing it. You're like, and next. And it is that balance. I don't like the word balance because I think balance is an illusion, right? But it is that juggling act of being content and continually progressing because, as you know, Jim Rohn said, we have to live to the full extent of our reach. Like, how tall does a tree grow? As tall as it can. But we stop halfway because we get comfortable. So it is like, it's so funny that you talk about it. And I don't actually have the answer, like, welcome to the video. Yeah. I don't think we have the answers to that, right? Because we're actually figuring it out. And I think that's why we said, let's chat it out, because we might be a couple of steps ahead of other people, but it's very much something that's always there. So where are you at currently with that? Because, you know, especially in your industry, when it's all people coming back with leaders and the group's getting bigger and bigger, and you just doubled your event and you're doubling it again. Your natural instincts, we go again and we go again and we go again. Yeah. How do you deal with, like, where are you at right now?
Yeah, it's a good one because, like, I think you talk about balance, and I'm the same. Like, as long as you're moving, you're like on a bicycle, right? Yeah. As long as you're moving, you're balanced, kind of thing. So I look at like the different areas. Like, I'm never all out forcing growth in all areas. Yeah. Like, so I just had the event, right? So I felt like I've grown, and I've got this like idea of like I want to grow the event more. But I know that if I'm going to focus on growing the event more, something else is gonna something it has to kind of compensate. So the event side of the business has just exploded, but like my group coaching side of the business has taken a bit of a hit. And I'm happy with that.
Do you know what you're reminding me of? That when I back in 2009, I was working on the cruise ships, right? And a big part of my story is when I first started speaking on stage, 4,000 guests a week, and I was number one in sales within 3 months. And that's when I realized I'm good on stage, I'm good at speaking, I'm obsessed with mindset, and I'm good at helping people. So in 2010, I went out on my own. I made a decision. But, you know, we did the Mediterranean for 3 months, and then we crossed over and did the whole Caribbean for the next 9 months. I did a year straight. It took me months to recover. I was exhausted. But in Barcelona, I remember it was one of our stops, there was a bar where all the beers were up on like a board, like the stock market, the price of the beer. And the more you bought a beer, the price went up.
Whoa.
And when a beer wasn't being bought, the price went down. So all day people are drinking Heineken or Stella Artois, that's going up and up. And then people say, well, that's getting too expensive. Let me buy the other beer.
Because it's calling.
And it was so kind of Stella Artois and Foster's and all that. But it was so super interesting, right? And you could see the demand bringing the value up. But when that went up, something had to go down. And there is a bit of that, like, you know, I think the integrity in business, sometimes people think, oh, if I win, someone else loses. I think when you're aligned and you have integrity, no one else has to lose. Everybody can win, right? Because as long as you're leading with value. But it's very interesting because that's what came to mind. Like when that went up, this comes down. It's just like wherever the energy and, you know, the attention and the flow goes, there's less power there. It's like when you turn up the air conditioning on the driver's side, the airflow goes down a bit on the other side because it's only so much to go around. Now, that might tap into a scarcity mindset, which could probably be a demon. I don't know if that's coming up. But then to flip side out, we're in an abundant world, actually. So, but within ourselves, maybe our energy and focus and attention is limited. So if something goes up here, something comes down. So again, the one rule can't apply to everything because we're in an infinite abundant universe, I believe. Yeah. But within ourselves, what I've discovered is I get burnt out. Yeah. I get stressed. I didn't think I'd ever would.
I never used to.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're so on the way, but then there's so many levels. Eventually, I don't think we identify it as stress.
Yeah.
Because for me, I didn't. I remember the first time I was dizzy on stage, and I was dizzy for 5 weeks, and I ended up a week in hospital, and they were like, you did all the brain scans, heart scans, and they said, stressed. And I said, I'm not stressed. I love what I do. Yeah. And they said, what's your life like? And I said, well, I speak on stage 4 nights a week. Every 6 weeks, I travel around the world, and I do 2 weeks. Did you think a lot about what you do? I said, never stop thinking about what I do. Like all day, all night. And I'm looking out, like, that's stress, bro. And I was like, really? Yeah. So I think we have limited capacity, right? So, you know, but where's your attention going? The acceptance then is like, you're all in the event. But then later that can cross over as well.
But I used to get really angry. Angry is the wrong word. Frustrated. I used to get really frustrated and disheartened with that.
With the dip somewhere else.
With like the dip in one thing and the growth. I'm like, why can't I have growing in all areas? And now I love it.
But that's been the visionary, I think, when early on, when you're ignorant in a way and you think, I can win everything all at once. It's almost like a youthful exuberance. Yeah. And then there's that's why I feel I'm at now in the last couple of years, a certain acceptance that the demons are always going to be there. The battle's always going to be there. And like that famous, you snooze, you lose, or you don't use it, you lose it. Like when something's not getting attention, it constantly requires intention.
Well, it's something that I got from you as well. Like I sometimes forget that I'm in a place now that I used to pray to be in.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's just taking a step back and being like, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, I couldn't even imagine being here, let alone like actually being here. I think I heard a story a long time ago, and it summed it up like the never enough for me. There was a husband and wife walking on the beach, let's say JBR here in Dubai, and they both look out into the distance, and about 200 meters away there is a 150 foot yacht, and it's huge. It's one of those yachts that you look at and go, oh, yeah, like I wouldn't mind that. And it seems to be empty, but there's one guy, big guy, huge stomach, sunglasses on his head, white linen shirt, and he's shouting on the phone like, rah, rah, rah. And the woman looks over to the yacht and goes, wow, could you imagine having that yacht?
Yeah.
And the man turns around and says like, yeah, but I've got something that he will never have. And she's like, what can you have that he never has? And he turns around to her and says, I have enough.
I have enough, yeah.
And like, she's just there like, huh. And I think sometimes chasing, you never actually win the race of fulfillment.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
I heard a version of that before, I can't remember exactly, so I'm going to mess it up. But it's like, it's not the man who has so much, it's the man who needs less.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like, you know what I mean? The richer guy is the one who needs less. But I don't think we need anything. We talked about this before on your podcast, actually. But we want things, and I think that's okay to want. So the never enough, I think, is a natural. I think we're happiest when we're progressing. Like, I think we're designed to be in pursuit. like to be creative, to be contributing, to be growing. And I think that's okay. But as long as you're not suffering because you're not, and we talk about this a lot, like you see people on social media and on YouTube and you're like, oh man, they have their shit together so much, and that insecurity and like we all feel it. And like it's only lately I'm talking about, like, yeah, I feel insecure all the time looking at Instagram because people have their aesthetics so good and their content so good, and I'm like, and they say I've only been doing it 18 months or 2 years. And I'm like, I've been doing this 15 years and your content's way better than mine. But just because they present it a certain way doesn't mean the work or the result is the same as mine. So the never enough thing, I think, is like, it's built into us, because if we didn't have it, the world wouldn't be as elaborate and incredible as it is. Even what we're doing now and how people are going to watch this on their phones. You know, some of you are watching it driving in traffic. You shouldn't be watching it. You know, wait till you park. But that's because of never enough. We have an amazing life. So it is that balance, right, of like not suffering.
Right, and some people don't have that demon so much at this stage right now, right? They're like, you know, that some people do, some people don't, and that's fine. So if people do have this demon of never enough, they're not alone.
But I think the opposite is also a demon, where it's like overly content.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Success
another demon.
trauma.
That's you're like the lack of vision, you know, a disease of realism, you know, being realistic and being a realist. Like that's a demon by itself as well, like playing small, staying stuck, not wanting more, like feeling like you've had enough. And you might see the guy on the beach and like is happy in the tent or whatever. But I like clients to take a full, you know, inventory of all aspects of your life, whether it's health, fitness, they're two different things. Career, money, they're two different things. Your contribution, your self-care, your relationships, personal, social, professional. Like, where are you in all of those? You know, and there's usually a season where you're burning hot, and there's another area where you're ice cold. But sometimes there's just lukewarm, and that's where people, I think, are also unhappy because they're lukewarm. The relationship is lukewarm, maybe. You know, the health and fitness is like, they've been average for so long. You know, money is maybe average. So that's also a demon, right? Yeah,
for sure. And I was speaking to a friend of mine back home recently, and he was a bit down, not depressed, but he was down. He was like, man, I'm following you and your family, and you're traveling, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. And I said, yeah, but there's stuff that you do that I'm envious of, and I'm down about myself. And he's like, what do I possibly do that you could be jealous about? And I said, what did you do last night? He said, I just went to the pub with the lads. And I was like,
that'd be class.
I didn't. Like I didn't. I'm not able to. I did like the group of friends that I've known for 30 years. They all live back in the same village. So there's, you know, it's as you said before, what we see externally is one thing, but what people are dealing with internally is crazy. But I think there's a lot of insight there for the first demon of never enough.
And I suppose, what if we gave people one maybe action step for never enough? What would you say if you were to tell people, here's one thing to deal with that? What would you say?
I think based on what you mentioned about like I mean, I do. It's similar, but I do like the whole, like the family, the friends, the fitness, the finances, the faith, like the wheel. So out of 10, what's your score on each one of those? There will be one that's higher than the rest.
Absolutely.
And I think it's being thankful and grateful for that.
Well, it's funny you said it. I call that contrast with my clients. So I say, like, because we're always looking back and judging. I say it's just contrast. The boss that's an asshole is contrast. The client that goes to you is contrast. What's it mean? It means it's showing you what you don't want. Everything is a signal, communication. So I have a chapter in the book eventually coming out. It's like year 3000 Back to Me book. And the chapter is called Your Chaos is Your Communication. So I'm a big believer everything is a signal. But you have to first be seeking. So if you're in a case of never enough, or you're battling where it's enough is too much enough, you have to say, what's the message? Because the feeling is the communication. Like, again, we're frequency beings. That feeling we get, it's a signal. It's actually a signal. And when you realize that, number one, you stop taking it personally. But number two, you get more curious. Like I was, curiosity leads to clarity. Most people aren't curious enough. So if you're struggling with this first demon, curiosity. And that would probably cover every demon, because curiosity is the answer to everything. Don't make conclusions.
Really? Right. And as you said, curiosity leads to clarity. Like I always say that clarity is the most powerful thing you can ever gain, which if you're getting it from being curious, then curious is the thing.